Well, hello there. My name is Lisa Callahan, and I am the founder of the Women's Emotional Eating Community Support Group. I am also the founder of a wonderful program called Crush That Food Thing Self-Discovery System, where I help women to identify their invisible emotional relationship with food through taking a journey of self-discovery. So self-discovery is an opportunity really to get curious about the underneath the surface things that are going on with inside of yourself without this explanation. Sometimes we do things that later on we say, well, why the heck did I do that? What was that about? And one of the things, and we're going to talk about this topic today, is telling yourself that you are eating your emotions. So a lot of times we will tell ourselves things, and sometimes the very thing that we're telling ourselves is the thing that we say we don't want. So it doesn't really make sense that we're telling ourselves something that we say we don't want. Because I know that when I struggled with emotional eating for over 30 years, I certainly didn't want to think that I was eating my emotions. And yet at the same time, I knew that I would tell myself, I'm upset today, or I'm nervous today, or I'm anxious or excited or something. And what I would do is I would decide that I was going to eat this thing because somehow or another, this thing was supposed to calm me down or let me clear my head or numb me out or take me out of my problems. And so because I told myself this and I didn't really know what was going on, I just continued the same pattern and habit. And I didn't understand where it was that I was keeping myself stuck. And so, with this being said, when we're talking about how to stop eating your emotions, the first thing that you really have to do is you have to be aware of what you're telling yourself. Because if you're telling yourself that you're eating your emotions, that's exactly what you are going to do. And this is called a paradigm. A paradigm is a belief system. It's a belief of something that we tell ourselves. Now, it might seem like the realest of real things, and you might believe it to the core. But yet at the same time, believing something to the core that you don't want is going to limit your ability to be able to get out of that pattern and habit. And since you're only in that pattern and habit because you're telling yourself you're there, well, then it's going to be really difficult for you to get out of your own way if you're the one that's telling yourself to stay standing in your own way. And so, thinking about the word paradigm, what it means, it's really just a belief system. And we are allowed to change the belief system because we are free to think whatever it is that we want to think. And so, if we allow ourselves to change the belief system that we're eating our emotions, then we'll be able to have room to think something else because it's really not true. You cannot eat your emotions. Your emotions are something that is within you. They do come from a subconscious place inside of you. Now, let's get a couple of things straight. The word subconscious, sub is below, right? Below the level of your conscious awareness. So, really, when you don't know that it's happening, you won't know how to change it from happening. So, the first place to start is to click on a conscious belief, like a thing in your mind that says to you, wait a minute, I'm telling myself that I'm eating my emotions. Is that what I want? If it's not what you want, then you can choose to change the thought, to actually shift the paradigm around why it is that you have that thought to begin with. Because if you don't want that thought, then you can choose to change it. Now, if it's coming from a subconscious place and you don't know that it's there, well, you won't know how to change it. However, once you catch wind to the thought that the thought alone of I'm eating my emotions is a subconscious thought, and you catch it in your conscious mind, well, now you've got some place to start because now you can actually take the opportunity to say to yourself, well, hang on a minute. Is that really true? Am I eating my emotions? Is this cheeseburger? Is this chip? Is this, I don't know, donut? is this really like my emotion? Like, because that's really what you're saying. Like, think about it. If you're telling yourself that you're eating your emotions, right? Well, that donut would have to be your emotion, and then you'd be eating it, right? Which that doesn't make any sense. So sometimes we end up telling ourselves something that really seems like a clear picture on paper, right? It's like, oh, I have these emotions and now I've got to eat them. But really, like the process of eating, if you like look up the word eating, it's like, chewing, putting something in your mouth, allowing it to digest, swallowing it down. Like there is a process to eating that is not matching with what you're doing when you tell yourself that you're eating your emotions, right? That donut is not your emotion. So now we have to kind of separate some things and be able to change the thought. So yes, you might be eating something. You might be eating to an extent where you're no longer hungry, or maybe you weren't hungry to begin with, right? The human body is a perfect machine. It really is. And your human body can tell you the difference between when you're hungry and when you're not. And so it's interesting because hunger is an actual feeling. Like you feel hunger. If you step on a nail, you feel pain. Like those are feelings. And sometimes we can get our feelings mixed up with our emotions. Emotions are actually subconscious. They come from within us. They're innate, really. Sometimes emotions are so deep within us that they come from our lineage, from our history, from our, ancestral. Like they're who we are. They like make us up. And sometimes what will happen is that we'll have something that happens outside of ourselves that causes us to feel something, like maybe someone hurt our feelings, or maybe, we feel like we were excluded from a family conversation or a friend gathering, and we feel sad, or we feel afraid of something, or we feel hurt by someone's words or actions. Like, so there's actually two different things about this, right? Feelings are one thing and emotions are another. And neither one of those two things have anything to do with eating. Like eating is its own basket. And when we mix the baskets up, we get a jumble of stuff that just feels like it's like a tightly wound yarn ball. And what I describe it as is, it is a yarn ball, really. Like think about your life and your life experiences as being like one string of yarn. You're one person, right? Sometimes what ends up happening is that through your life, you think about that string of yarn winding and winding and winding and winding and taking all these different twists and turns and whatever. And you end up with this like ginormous ball, and the ball is all wound together and you can't really tell where the beginning is, where the ending is. Like it just seems like a mess. And so because this feels like a mess, what we have to do is we have to really be able to separate things so that we can get really clear on what it is that is on the sort of inside of that yarn ball. Self-discovery, what it allows you to do is it allows you to kind of take your finger and poke it inside of the yarn ball. And then what you end up doing is you end up kind of loosening things around. And then you get this one string of yarn in your hand and you kind of go like, and it sort of releases a little feeling from the inside. And then we can start to separate things a little bit to get a little more freedom in our mindset, because our mind is really where the yarn ball is, right? That's what's contaminating our head, right? Your body, you're just kind of moving around here, but your thoughts, whether they be subconscious below the level of your conscious awareness or coming from the top part of your mind, these thoughts can kind of, move us in directions that later on we may regret, right? If you stop and you get, 6 donuts or whatever, because you had a hard day at work and somehow or another, you're telling yourself that you're eating your emotions, but you're not. Your emotions are inside of you. You're feeling something that's more situational, right? Like something happened, right? And the feelings are coming from situations. The emotions are deep. The feelings are coming from situations, and now you're eating. They don't all go together. The feelings and emotions, they are combinations of different things that you have inside of you. The eating, that's separate. And so the first way to make sense of all this, really, the first like step one is to stop telling yourself that you're eating your emotions. Just change that thought and write it down and say, if I didn't have to think that I'm eating my emotions, what else could I think? See what comes up. Everybody's response to themselves will be a different response. But the one thing that I know for sure is that when you can no longer change your circumstances, you are challenged to change your response. So yeah, you might have things going on in your world. There might be things that you do not know how to handle. There might be things in your life that you don't know how to respond to. There may be feelings that you don't really know how to feel or how to express. That is the truth. And yet at the same time, telling yourself that you're eating those emotions, well, that's not going to help you learn how to feel your feelings or how to experience your emotions better. All that's going to do is it's going to keep you stuck, never being able to figure out how to feel your feelings and never being able to figure out how to experience your emotions, because you're telling yourself that you're eating your emotions or you're eating your feelings. And that part's not true. You're eating and you're feeling your emotions, two separate things. And so once we can learn within ourselves how to eat and how to be able to experience feelings and how to be able to experience emotions, and we can separate those three things because they are three separate things, well, then we have something which we can grow from. And so in my trainings in self-discovery, and I was trained in courses that I actually took myself. You really, unless you've experienced this and what it feels like to be on that side and to be sort of in that mindset of like jumble, and until you get through it, you cannot grow to be able to give it to others, to be able to teach it. So the only reason why I'm here right now, the only reason is because I was coached myself in, the spectrum of being educated and such. Yes, I am a health coach. And yet at the same time, unless I experienced my own metamorphosis, there's no way that I would be able to dedicate this much energy and this much time and this much passion and purpose to giving the community here so much information if I didn't already experience it myself. So it's not just, reading it out of a book or, listening to a podcast and being like, oh yeah, that makes sense. No, it's a matter of experiencing it within yourself, because you cannot give what you do not have. So if you are in your world, like, helping others and doing for others, and then you're taking all of that and you're turning it into your stress and anxiety and your, feelings where your feelings are hurt, or you're, not able to like handle your life. And then you're telling yourself that you're using food to, like handle your emotions, and like you're eating your emotions. Well, then you're giving something that you don't yet have. And so I urge you to take this time for yourself to be able to figure out your own story. So that way you'll know how it feels to get unstuck, so that you can help others get unstuck as well. Because I know that you're a caring human being and you want to be able to help others. You just can't help others until you have already helped yourself. And so in my trainings, in my teachings, and I was in a company called, it's called Your Infinite Life Coaching Company. And they taught me this. They taught me that feelings are meant to be felt, and that a feeling can actually only be felt for 90 seconds unless you fuel it with a thought. Wow. I mean, that is fascinating. And I know this to be true because there have been times where I have felt sad and I have cried about something. And then the tears will come and then they'll stop. And then maybe a few minutes later, I'll think about it again. And all of a sudden the tears come again. And so I know that because I'm fueling something with a thought, I'm allowing myself to conjure up that feeling again, and I'm continuing it. So what I do when I'm in that situation is I actually tell myself to stop thinking about it for right now, because I know that if I just give it some time and space to do what it's supposed to do, which is to be able to get my mindset wrapped around what's happening in my life and what my feelings are about it without fueling it with something that's actually meant to hurt me. And this is what you're doing when you're telling yourself that you're eating your emotions, is you're not allowing yourself to experience what a human being is supposed to experience, which is to feel your feelings and then to grow through the experience. And what you're doing is you're taking it and you're not allowing yourself to feel anything. You're shutting the garage door on yourself. You're basically telling yourself you're not supposed to feel anything. You're not supposed to feel emotions. And then you're telling yourself that you're eating to, eat your emotions. You can't do that. It's not logical, actually. So you have to be able to take your mindset and twist it into a different gear and to separate your food and your eating from your feelings and your emotions. Then you'll have some clear paths which to go on. So maybe eating has nothing to do with this. Maybe you were hurt by something or somebody or something happened. So why not write it down? Why not, take some breath? Why not connect with yourself and ask yourself these simple questions like, if I can't change the circumstances, because we cannot change what someone else is doing, right? And so sometimes somebody else might do something in our lives that, yeah, it might hurt us. It might make us feel afraid. It might make us feel sad. That is real, right? That you're a human being. You are supposed to experience your feelings. But when you add food into the mix and then you tell yourself that this is how you're coping or this is how you're dealing with your feelings, well, you're minimizing your ability to be human by doing that to yourself. That's actually self-sabotage. So now no longer are you allowing yourself to experience a human feeling. You're telling yourself basically, nope, I'm not going to experience this human feeling and I'm going to eat instead. And then you're telling yourself that your eating is meant to help you like stuff down or eat your emotions. And those two things are untrue. And so when you are no longer able to change your circumstances, you're challenged to change your response to yourself. Now, taking food and using it to eat your feelings is cruel. It just is, because it's not allowing you to feel your feelings as a human being. And so then you're telling yourself basically that you don't deserve to feel. And that's untrue, because you do deserve to feel. You're a human being. But remember that feelings can only be felt for 90 seconds until you fuel them with a thought. So if you just give some space and time to be able to digest your feelings without stuffing them down with food, you'll end up being able to clear some headspace for yourself. And just that breath alone, just that little bit of clearing, just that little bit of mindset to say, look at that donut and say, if I eat this donut, is this right here? Is this my feeling that I'm eating? And then look at it and say, no, that donut is not my feeling. And put it down, send it off. And ask yourself, like, what am I feeling? Allow yourself to feel your feelings without fueling them with a thought. A lot of times the thoughts that come into our head are injustices. They might be blame. They might be regret. They might be guilt. And if you're feeling those things, if you're fueling those things, then what you're doing is you're standing in your own way of allowing yourself to be human. Because somewhere in the mix of things, there may have been places where you feel like you made a mistake. And mistakes are meant to be made so that you can learn from them. But if you keep stuffing them down and you keep, kind of overshadowing the ability for you to be able to grow by telling yourself that you're eating your emotions, well, that's just a big old yarn ball. We have to get some clearing in this. And this is how we grow. We learn new things about ourselves every single day. You are a growing, feeling, emotional human being. That's why you're alive. So think about this in a time where you're not feeling emotional, right? Let yourself explore this. Watch this video several times. Reach out, ask for help. The only way that we can get out of our way is to change our mind about the very same thoughts that are meant to keep you stuck. And if you are thinking that you are eating your emotions, you are giving yourself a thought that is meant to keep you stuck. And if you're the one thing standing in your own way, then you will continue to stand in your own way. There's a quote from Henry Ford, and he says, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you'll be right. And we talk a lot in Crush That Food Thing self-discovery system about the difference between love and fear. And if you're always going to be working on the side of fear, and you're always going to be getting fearful thoughts in your head, and you're always going to be getting thoughts in your head that are meant to keep you stuck, and you're the one thing standing in your own way, well, then nobody, will be able to change your mindset about that. And so sometimes I have gals that say to me, well, I'm the only one that can do this. And I know that you're right. But at the same time, we need help. Like, human beings are hardwired for connection. And so if you're telling yourself that you don't deserve to connect with anybody, or you got to figure it out on your own, or that's not fair. You can't know any more than you know. And if up until watching this video, you thought that you were eating your emotions, and now you're like, oh, wait, I'm not eating my emotions. I'm eating and I'm having emotions, but the eating is not allowing me to actually feel my emotions. And that's not fair. That's cruel. Then you can now start to separate things, and you will want help. Honestly, you will want help. So reach out, ask for help. Post in the comments here. I'd love to hear from you, and we'll take it from there. All right. Thank you. Onward and upward to a positive day. Bye for now.